Hello, thank you for clicking on to this video. Normally, at this time of the year, I would be standing up in front of parents and Year 10 students, giving them an introduction to what is available to them once they have finished their GCSE courses. But these, of course, are very strange times. So instead, I am sitting at home with a headset on, talking you through this presentation. Okay, my aims in this are for us to consider what is available to the students after they finish their GCSEs. Now is not the time to be explaining in minute detail the application process. That will happen in the autumn term, but for now we're going to have a look at what is out there, whereabouts the students can apply to, and why they should make their choices one way or another. Now, this might seem a strange image to start off with, but I think it does illustrate very nicely something that I do want to say. So, the answer, what's the best way to get to the top of a climbing wall? Well, if any of you have been up a climbing wall, you'll know there is no one single correct answer. It might be that you can go straight up, bottom to top. At other times, it's important that you have to go sideways or maybe down slightly before you can go back up again. The important thing is to keep climbing, but there is no single route to the top. It depends on the climber. It depends on the actual route that you're trying to take, the level of difficulty that you are going for, and it depends on what you want to achieve by the end of it. So that, I hope, if you keep that in mind, that should help explain what we're then going to go on and talk about. The range of courses that students can apply for are really quite bewildering in the number. I'm hoping that this grid here just simplifies it slightly, and if you can keep in mind that climbing wall that I showed on the previous slide, it might start to make a little bit more sense. So things to notice about the grid is that there are three different columns there. So you've got qualifications, which are academic qualifications, mostly exams, very traditional sorts of things. The GCSEs that students themselves are certainly very familiar with, and then the A-levels, which are the most well-known sort of exams, the ones that you hear most about in the media. And those are mainly examination courses, sitting behind desks, learning, studying, writing essays, doing tasks, and being examined at the end. Sometimes the exams will be 2 or even 3 hour long exams. The one thing you might not be so familiar with in that column is the International Baccalaureate. That is a qualification offered by a couple of centres here in the Cambridge area, a very academic qualification where instead of studying 3 subjects, which you would typically do for A-level, you would end up studying quite a broad range of subjects to quite a high level. You can specialise in 3 areas, so you might specialise, say, in the sciences or in the humanities, but you would still have to do other subjects as well. So if you're doing the sciences as a specialism, you would still be doing things like English and history and languages alongside them. And similarly, if you had English, history and languages as your specialisms, you would still be doing sciences alongside it as well. So it's a interesting course, very broad-ranging course, very good for those sorts of students who maybe have quite a broad range of interests, maybe aren't ready to specialise and narrow down quite so much quite so soon, and you can see there it is actually at the same level as A-levels. So if you succeed in the International Baccalaureate, you would have the equivalent of 3 A-levels, and that would get you access into any university that you wanted. obviously depending on the grades at which you achieved the International Baccalaureate. If we jump to the right-hand column, that's maybe the next easiest to explain, where you've got the occupational or technical qualifications. Some of you might have heard in the media talk about T-levels. This is where they fit in. Now, these are much more practical in terms of the assessment. They're very much coursework based, and they are designed very much with a career in mind, with a job at the end of it. The T-levels certainly have been developed very close collaboration with industry. And so if you are doing these, you might do something in catering, for example. You might do something in plumbing or construction, and that would take you very much through the qualifications and into that particular job area. The middle section, the applied one, probably the easiest way of understanding it is to see it as a bit of a mixture of both. So you've got a little bit of the practical element of the occupational and technical courses, but you've got some of the theory of the more academic courses, and you apply that theory in a practical case. So you've got there BTECs, Nationals, Cambridge Nationals, CTECs. So there's a whole range of different types of applied, but they are mainly coursework, but there is an examined element to them as well. The difference really in going for each of those three depends on the person, on the style of learner that person is, the sorts of things that they respond best to. Are they someone that responds really well to examine situations? They're good at learning things, recalling things, and then putting it down in essays and or extended answers? Or are they someone is much better with their hands, much more practical, likes to get out there, sleeves rolled up, get involved and do things that way? Or are they somewhere in the middle as well? The other thing to notice about the grid is that you have those three levels, and each of those levels, so the academic, applied and occupational on a level 3, they have an equivalence. So a level 3 in a BTEC would be the equivalent of an A-level. A level 3 in a City and Guilds in the occupational one would be the equivalent of an A-level as well. So the level 1 and level 2 is kind of where our students are at the moment when they're looking at their GCSEs. So if they're getting between grades 1 and 3, then they're working at a level 1. If their grades are between a 4 and a 9, then they are working at a level 2. Now, in terms of what they can apply for next, then they need to be looking at what the level is that they're on at the moment. So if they are working at a level 1, you can't leapfrog up to a level 3. You have to be applying for a level 2 course next. So for most people who are looking at that, they're probably going to be looking at doing an applied course, a BTEC, a Cambridge National or CTEC, or maybe one of the more occupational courses, the NVQ, City and Guilds, or maybe even going down an apprenticeship and employment route as well. Those people on a level 2 qualification at the moment, those getting 4s to 9s, then they can be looking at a level 3. So they could be looking at an A-level International Baccalaureate, they could be looking at level 3 BTEC, etc. Now, you'll remember what I said about the climbing wall. You don't necessarily go straight up. Just because you are doing GCSEs at the moment doesn't mean to say that you should definitely go on and do A-levels. For many people, that is not the right route. Sometimes a more successful route for people is going down the BTEC route, or maybe because of the nature of the career a particular person is looking to, then the occupational route would be ideal. It'd be a waste of time, perhaps, trying to do A-levels if the occupational route that you're taking doesn't require those A-levels. You need to get those practical qualifications. You need to get that experience early on, so then you can get yourself a job as soon as possible. The other thing to be said as well is that you don't necessarily go from level 2 up to level 3. In some cases, you might need to go sideways. That's certainly the case with some of the more practical courses. So you may well have got a level 2 qualification in terms of GCSEs, but you won't have done the elements, the practical elements to that same standard if you are doing an NVQ or a BTEC or a City and Guilds. So you might need to go sideways and get that level 2 qualification there before you can then go on to the level 3. And in a few cases you might even need to go back and do a level 1 qualification, get those skills that you need at the level 1 before going up to the level 2 and the level 3. Generally speaking, once you've got your level 1, your level 2 in the applied or the occupational one, it's a fairly quick route, and it's fairly flexible in terms of you being able to move through and up to the level 3. And then, as I said previously, once you get to that level 3, depending on the what you achieve at the end of that level 3, that could be the route into university. All of those routes there could take you to a university course. You do not need to do A-levels to get into university. Plenty of universities, plenty of good universities will accept BTECs, national CTECs, and there are some universities as well, depending on the course that you want to do, will take students on with the NVQs, the City and Guilds as well. So don't think that a university course is going to be closed down to you if you don't go up that academic route. It is open to all. You just need to be working hard, and the important thing for the students is that they are choosing the right route for them, the one that is going to bring them the most enjoyment, and ultimately the route that's going to bring them the most success. I will probably say that again before this presentation is out, but it is important for people to realise that. So often people just go down the one thing, they're quite blinkered in the way that they're thinking, and actually it's not necessarily the right route for them. Now, of course, you can't just choose any course you fancy and then go for it. You need to meet the entry criteria, and this slide just takes you through a rough outline of the criteria, but do please be aware there are differences between establishments, there are differences between different courses as well. But roughly speaking, if you're looking at the academic route, the A-level, the IB courses, most of those courses would require the equivalent of at least 7 GCSEs at 4 or above, usually including at least a 4 in maths and or English. Now, when we say at least 7 GCSEs at 4 and above, that is really the very, very minimum requirement. There are very, very few courses that you could actually get on that would take you at just 7 GCSEs at a 4. For most of those courses for the A-level, you would need higher than a 4. Particularly in the subjects that you are aiming to do. So that's certainly the case when it comes to things like maths and science. Some establishments would require at least a 6. Most establishments you're looking at a 7, and in some cases they tend to take people who are 8s and 9s, so you do need to look very carefully at that. So as it says there, some centres require higher grades for some or all subjects, and then certain subjects will need specific GCSEs. So even if it's a subject that you've not done at GCSE, you might need a particular GCSE to get onto it. That is the case with something like psychology, for example. Very, very few schools offer psychology as a GCSE, as a route to A-level, but many, or most sixth form centres do offer psychology A-level these days, but there is quite a high element of maths in there, so there will be a requirement that students have a certain grade in their maths GCSE in order to be able to do the psychology A-level. Okay, that's just one example, so it's really important that students look very carefully at the entry criteria for that. When it comes to the level 3 applied courses, the BTECs, the nationals, CTECs, etc., most of them require 4 GCSEs, 4 or above. Usually including at least a 4 in maths and or English. Some will require more than 4 GCSEs, or some will require specific subjects, and if students have been doing a BTEC already as part of their Key Stage 4 programme, they may require a merit or distinction in that relevant level 2 course. Now, the reason why it seems to be a lower entry requirement to get onto a level 3 applied course is just the nature of the courses and the nature of the way those courses are examined and assessed at the end of it. For the A level, as I've said, these are examined courses, and if someone is not particularly strong at exams and really struggles in exam situations, then an A level course is probably not the best route for them. They're unlikely to be successful, and so therefore the GCSE requirement for those A level courses is much higher, because if you're getting good grades, high grades at your GCSE, that's an indicator that you do perform well in exams. The level 3 courses, the weighting is not so much towards the exam, it's much more towards a practical side. So just basing it on exam grades is not really a fair indicator of someone's suitability to be doing that particular course. And then as we go over to the right hand side, the occupational and technical courses, generally you work your way up through those by starting at a level 1 occupational technical course, go to level 2 and level 3. So it's not really so much about having a particular range of GCSEs, although most courses do require English and maths at a particular level, with maybe 1 or 2 other GCSEs as well. These 3 points are so important. I have given them their own slide. I've already mentioned it, but entry requirements for courses can differ depending on the establishment. So it is really important that students check those prospectuses carefully. And for a student to make a successful application, they must meet the required entry criteria. There is no point a student applying for a course if they have not got what is needed to get onto it. It's going to be a wasted application. They won't be invited for interview, and it's actually not helpful for anybody in that situation. And then the last point is one that I really cannot emphasize enough. Invitation for interview in the first place, and then the offers of places themselves will be based on a student's predicted grades, not on their final grade. I mean, obviously they will need to get those final grades, but there is no point a student saying, okay, well, my predictions are low, but I know in the real exam I'm going to improve and I'm going to get the grades that will get me onto the course. The sixth form centres, the other further education establishments, they look at the predicted grades and they make their offers based on those predicted grades. So it is really, really important that students firstly know what their predicted grade is, that they work hard to ensure that their predicted grade is what it needs to be to get onto a particular course, and that they apply realistically for the course that they are going to be able to get on. Because ultimately, if a student is applying for a course and they've not got the grades for it, they're just not going to be suited to that course. They're not going to be enjoying it. It's going to be at a level that's too challenging for them, and they will end up having a miserable time for 2 years. So it is important to get it right, but it is not too late to change those predicted grades. The earlier students know about it, which is why we're telling them now, the more time they have to do something about it, to impress their teachers, to get good grades in assessments they do. When we come to doing a mock exam, that they score well in the mock exams, because all of those things will be added together, and the teachers take that all into consideration when they make their predicted grade. Okay, so now we've looked at the courses that you can do. It's time for us to look at where you can do them. There are two routes that you can go down after you've done your GCSEs. The first one that we're going to look at is the most common route, which is further education. So you can see there that there's all those different courses that we've already looked at, and you can see all the different places that you can do those courses. So we have, when we look at the A-levels, we've got places like the Oaks, which is our own sixth form centre, but we've also got Hills Road, Long Road, Impington, Comberton, Cast, which is the Cambridge Academy of Science and Technology, and then Bishop Laney, which is the sixth form centre in Ely. They all offer A-level courses as well. The only places that offer the IB courses, the International Baccalaureate, are Impington and Parkside. Impington have the greatest range of IB courses, very well established centre over many, many years. Parkside have been going for a few years now. They have a smaller range of IB courses. The applied courses, the BTECs and the like, can be found in quite a lot of places. CRC, Cambridge Regional College, is the main provider of vocational education here in Cambridge. Cast offer a science route down the BTECs. Cower, the College of West Anglia, is based in Milton, and there you can do courses in animal care and equine studies. The Oaks, as well as offering A-levels, will also offers some BTECs and CTECs, as does Long Road. Impington and Parkside also have a mixture of the IB and the applied courses, along with Comberton and Bishop Laney as well. So with some of these places, there really is a case where you can mix and match. You might do one A-level in one subject, and then maybe a couple of BTECs, or one BTEC in one subject, and then a couple of A-levels in other subjects. Generally speaking, when you come to places like CRC and Cower, the College of West Anglia, the course that you choose, that's the only one that you do. So if you choose a BTEC in business studies, for example, you'll be spending all of your time doing business studies. So it's a much bigger course. There's more credits involved, rather than the single unit business studies course that you might do, say, at somewhere like Long Road. And then when it comes to the occupational and the technical courses, the specialists in those are CRC and Cower. Cower, as I say, focusing more on animal care. CRC has a huge range. It is one of the most successful vocational colleges in the country, and it offers hundreds of different courses. So there are some very practical things like motor vehicle maintenance, construction, plumbing, etc. But you've also got more creative fields. You've got art, there's games design, there's different sorts of media that you can do there. There are courses in childcare, in health and social care. You've got some amazing facilities for things like catering, really professional quality standard facilities there, and hair and beauty similarly. They pretty much run a professional salon there. There's travel and tourism that you can do. There's sports studies, uniformed and public services, performing arts you can do there as well. Business studies, IT, science as well. I think I've covered just about, well, there's probably something I've forgotten. It really is quite an impressive setup though, and a place that some people dismiss unfairly, because it is actually, as I say, a very, very successful college. It provides some amazing courses and very successfully takes students on. Many of them go on to university, others go into employment. It's got wonderful links with local employers as well. So it is definitely a very serious place to consider for a whole range of different subjects. So please do not dismiss it. The second route is employment, and there are three pathways that you can go down there: apprenticeship, employment with training, and a traineeship. Apprenticeship is the one that probably most people have heard about, even if they're not entirely familiar with exactly what's involved. But an apprenticeship, a student would need to secure an employer, and then once they've got that employer, then there is a training provider as well. The training provider is the place where they go to actually work towards the qualifications. That is the equivalent of 1 day a week, and for the rest of the time they are there learning on the job, and that is one of the great attractions of an apprenticeship, that you're learning on the job and earning while you are learning as well. Employment with training is kind of similar to an apprenticeship in that there is an equivalent of 1 day per week of training. So there are qualifications that students are working to, enabling them to make progress at a future date and not just be stuck doing the same job for the rest of their lives. The traineeship is just kind of like a level below that. It's for those students maybe who haven't quite got the skills to be able to successfully apply for an apprenticeship. It builds up their experience, builds up their confidence. It lasts for a short amount of time. And then once they've successfully completed that, they generally find that they're more likely to be successful in terms of applying for an apprenticeship. Just want to talk a little bit more about apprenticeships. When most people think of apprenticeships, they think of the traditional trades, like carpentry or plumbing or something like that. But actually these days apprenticeships cover a whole range of different industries, often in places that you perhaps wouldn't have considered at all. Even in things like law now, you can become an apprentice lawyer. So it is definitely worth considering, even if it's not for after GCSEs. It is certainly worth looking at after A-levels, because many apprenticeships are higher level apprenticeships. They require an A-level qualification to enter it, and there are some companies which will take students from an A-level and take them through university, actually pay for them to go through university while they are doing an apprenticeship. So that is surely got to be some sort of attractive proposition in this day and age, with things like tuition fees going up and up and up. So definitely worth investigating. And for more information about apprenticeships, there are of course any number of websites you could look at. The ones I've got on the screen here are some of the best ones. You've got the government's own website, the National Apprenticeship website, but there's some others there as well. Form the Future and the AIM Group, those are local organisations that support young people and support schools as well, not just in apprenticeships but in a whole range of careers related activities. The company's own websites are worth looking at, because they will often advertise when an apprenticeship is coming up and can explain what an apprenticeship is all about as well. And then of course we have our own careers advisor, Dr. Simpson, who is able to give some really very detailed information, advice and guidance as to whether an apprenticeship might be suitable for a particular student. So now we've looked at what there is available and whereabouts you might do each of these particular sorts of courses. It's time to think about how you might decide what is the right place for you. Hopefully some of the things that I have mentioned have already sparked off ideas as to what might be more appropriate than others, but I just want to summarize some of the points that I have been making, and then direct you towards other places where you might be able to find out more information that will help you make the best decision for you. Okay, so all these things that are appearing on the screen now are things that you really do need to take into account when you're deciding what course would be most appropriate for when the GCSEs are over. There is, of course, the career path. There are certain careers where you would definitely be needing to go down a certain route. We've talked a little bit about some of maybe the more practical careers, things like plumbing or carpentry, where you would definitely be going down a much more occupational route, doing those sorts of courses rather than doing A-levels. Then there are other careers where the way into those would be through a more traditional A-level sort of route, although, as I mentioned with regards to apprentices, things are changing, and depending on the sort of student you are, depending on your own strengths and your own skill set, there are all sorts of different ways of getting into a whole range of different careers. But it is worth thinking, where do you want to ultimately end, and what would be the best pathway for you to get there? That second point is the one that I've mentioned before. I will mention it again. The entry requirements versus the projected grades. Students need to make sure that they have the appropriate projected grades to meet those entry requirements. If they haven't got the grades that are being predicted, they will not be offered an interview, they will not be offered a place. I cannot say that enough, I cannot make it clear enough, so please do take that into consideration. The learning style and assessment methods, I've mentioned those again as well. Some people are suited to sitting behind a desk, learning, writing essays, doing exams. For other people, they are certainly not suited to that, and they actually shine much more, maybe working collaboratively, working on projects, or doing something much more practical with their hands. Students need to be confident about what their strengths are, and then be able to play to those strengths, and the assessment methods. Where do they score best? Do they score best under exam conditions? Do they score best when they're doing coursework type activities or practical activities? And students need to choose wisely as to which course is going to suit them. The learning environment, ethos and atmosphere, it's not something that I've mentioned so far, but you will remember, if you go back to all the different places, there are any number of sixth form colleges or further education centres you can go to. Many of them are offering very, very similar courses. What you need to be able to do is to try and imagine yourself in that establishment. Would you fit into that establishment? Is it the kind of the sort of place where you would feel comfortable? Some are a little bit more formal, a little bit more maybe academic, will push you, will encourage you to be far more independent. Other places are slightly more relaxed, maybe have more pastoral support around to help students along the way. Or it might just be the actual building itself. Some buildings you can feel, yeah, this is the place for me, this is where I want to be. Or you look at the other students that go there and you see, yeah, these are like-minded people, I would fit in well here. So that is something really important to consider, and wherever possible, make that effort to go and visit those different places. Now obviously with the current situation we are in, that is not going to be as easy as it normally is. But I'm sure there will be opportunities where the different sixth form colleges and the further education centres will want to open their doors, invite people in to see their facilities, to meet the tutors, to meet other students, and the more that you can do that, the better students will be able to make a choice, because they will be able to really imagine themselves there in that situation. And the last point on there is kind of an obvious one, but one that sometimes people forget is transport. Now, living in Cambridge, most places are fairly easily accessible, whether it be by car, by bike, on foot, or by bus. But if you are looking at somewhere a little bit further afield, a Comberton or a Bishop Laney in Ely, for example, students do need to be sure that they can actually get to those particular places. So, as I mentioned, sixth form colleges, further education centres would normally run open days and open evenings during the summer and autumn terms. And we would be normally encouraging all students to attend as many of these as possible. Certainly not dismissing some things, thinking, oh yeah, I know that. The Oaks, it's Netherhall, I know what Netherhall's like. Well, the Oaks College is actually quite distinct from Netherhall School. And many students find that even though they've been at Netherhall since year 7, they get to the Oaks and suddenly they have a very different experience, treated in a very different way, and the style of teaching is very different as well. So don't dismiss somewhere just because you think you know it, or because you think you've heard about it. You might have heard something about Hills Road, Long Road, CRC from someone else, but actually that's their opinion of it. You need to be able to make your own opinion of it as well, and all of these places have much to commend them. So I would encourage you to investigate them all. Don't dismiss anything. There is a place which is ideally suited to you as a student, and you need to do the research and find out what that place is. Unfortunately, though, due to the current situation, things aren't going to be normal in terms of open events. So my advice would be to refer to the websites for each establishment to check the most up-to-date arrangements. Some will be offering virtual tours of the place. Others will be offering open events to maybe limited numbers, maybe going in on a morning or an evening, and you might have to book in. But do please make sure that you are checking out and getting the best advice and the best experience that you can of each of these places. Okay, these are some of the people that will help you make the decision. We have our careers guidance advisor, Dr. Simpson, who is available to speak to anybody. She can be emailed. Once we're all back in school, there are regular interview slots that students can have with her as well. There is myself, Mr. Carlson. I'm the Work-Related Learning Enterprise and Careers Coordinator, so I have a good overview of what is available out there. Our Year 11 team of Mrs. Kirkham and Mr. Hunter are extremely experienced in advising and guiding students as to the process of application and the sort of courses that might be available to them. If you're wanting something a little bit more specific about sixth form and A-levels, then we have our experts here at the Oaks College. So Mr. Masawi, the head of the Oaks College, then his deputies, Mr. Siposh and Mrs. Hayward, and then also part of that sixth form team, Miss Samuels and Mr. Watkins. All of them would be delighted to talk to students, even if maybe the Oaks isn't going to be the ultimate destination. They can still pass on some invaluable information about sixth form study. Subject teachers are going to be really important people. They have obviously a really good idea of the students' capacity and potential for further study in their particular subjects. Many of them actually teach A-level in their subject as well, so they would have a really good idea as to whether a student would be appropriate for an A-level course, for example. Form tutors have a good overview of each student and have a good sense of their strengths and maybe some of their weaknesses as well. And of course, family and friends are important people to be consulting. So the whole range of people that students can get information from, and I would advise students to be asking as many people as possible to be getting the fullest picture that they can, rather than just relying on one individual source. And inevitably, there are a whole range of websites as well. I'd particularly like to draw your attention to the careers pages of the Netherhall website. It's been established now over a number of years. We're constantly adding to it. There's a whole wealth of information there, not just about the application process for post-16, but all sorts of careers information, links to other websites, useful links that you can click on, videos and stuff that you can watch as well. The My Choice 16 website, that is the place where students will be applying in the autumn term. So they can't make any applications now, but it is a good website to do some research on. It's got links to all the different prospectuses of the sixth form colleges. It takes you through step by step, explains the process, and it's got some pages on there which help give you a little bit of advice and point you in certain directions as to whether you might be more suited to one particular course or another, in much the same way that I've done, but it takes you through in a different way and at a different pace. You've got the Apprenticeships, again, a good website you can click on there. The Cambridge Area Partnership one. Cambridge Area Partnership is the group of local schools, both 11 to 16 and the 16 to 18 schools. They work together, support each other, and that's and they will provide information about how applications take place, give a little bit of advice as to the sort of things that you would need to put onto your application, a bit of guidance as well. Euthoria is something aimed at young people, helping and supporting them in a whole range of areas, not just careers related. And parental guidance is, as it says there, guidance for parents, not just about careers and applications, but a whole range of different things to do with being a parent, bringing up young people. So that might be worth clicking on and looking at as well. Okay, so we've just about reached the end of the presentation. The only question to ask really is, what now? What are the next steps that need to be taken? Well, the first thing that students need to do is research, and research. Researching the different courses that are available, the sorts of courses that would be most suited to them. And then to research the different establishments to see what they are like, to see what sort of entry requirements they have for the different courses, what they can offer, what some of the extracurricular opportunities that might be available at those establishments as well. And finally, it is to work hard. Students need to work hard to make sure that their predicted grades are what they need to be. As I've said before, it's not too late to make those changes, to impress the teachers, to score well on the assessments that take place between now and application time. And the only thing that I can leave you with is to reassure you that the right course is out there for you. We are blessed here in Cambridge with a whole range of wonderful establishments, both sixth form colleges and further education centres, all of them very, very successful. and a whole range of different courses out there. I can guarantee that the right course is out there for each student, and it is important that they find it for themselves, that they do the right sort of research, they inform themselves, and then they work hard to get those grades so that they can go on and be successful in whatever it is that they choose to do. And for me, I would just like to say thank you very much for making it all the way through this presentation. I hope it has been useful. If you need any more information or advice, then do please feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.